Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to be spending the whole hour today with JT Mitchell, the news director of SuperTalk Mississippi News. We're actually going to do this about once a month and talk about, what's in the news and so on. Before we go to JT, I just want to share with you the most recent column that I've written, and I'll introduce to you sort of a new opening that we're going to start using when this conversation is part of my show. And you're going to hear this, and if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or SuperTalk TV, you'll hear this probably 3 or 4 times a week at least. Why don't we cue it up, Kyle, and let people hear this new opening.
Coastal Mississippi, we're the Gulf of America's best-kept secret. Ready to bust loose. Harrison, Hancock, Jackson. Our ports, our passion, our people are set to shine. One team, one shot, one future. Crank it up. Let's unleash it together on SuperTalk Mississippi.
So that's the new opening, and I've previously shared the first column that I wrote. I'll share the third column that I wrote on Monday, and today is the second column. And it says, and the headline says, Coastal Mississippi's big moment is here. Let's seize the moment together. And here is the column. The last time I wrote about our future, I felt Coastal Mississippi teetering on the edge of something massive. We're already an economic engine in this state, but our region is bursting with untapped potential. Thriving ports, new jobs, and incredible cities, each with its own unique pulse, crackle with energy. Not just one city or county, but all of us, Harrison, Hancock, and Jackson, standing as one team. That vision still burns bright, and with tariffs and a White House dead set on bringing manufacturing home, the spotlight's swinging our way. This is our shot to shine, and I know we can grab it if we lock arms and charge forward together. Washington's buzzing with big tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China, the EU, and others. Honda's eyeing Indiana for a hybrid plant. Pfizer's doubling down stateside. Apple is dropping $500 billion in the U.S. on U.S. projects, including a Texas AI factory. Stocks might jitter, but the tide is shifting. Manufacturing's hunting for a home. Why can't Coastal Mississippi be this home? We've got the goods, and I'm convinced we can make it happen with a unified front. But this onshore push. But before this onshore push, there was another trend already brewing: advanced tech reshaping economic development. It's wild to think that Mississippi is in these conversations. Data centers exploding, AI and automation slashing manufacturing costs. Digital platforms are letting even tiny businesses go global. But it's a double-edged sword, disrupting old jobs, widening skills gaps, and demanding we adapt fast to harness it. This is tough, smart work. We've got to be in the game to win. Look at what we bring to the conversation. Deep ports, a skilled workforce, and a gritty stubbornness that carried us through darker days than most. I've been digging into the numbers, sizing up markets like Mobile, Pensacola, and Savannah, and others, places like ours, wrestling with hurricanes and insurance woes. They don't let storms stop them, and neither should we. Some here blame our slower growth on hurricane threats, but I'm not buying it. My analysis isn't done, but early vibes say our growth could soar past our peers. We've got the talent and the hustle to crush it together. Here's a gut punch. It took us until 2022 to hit the pre-Katrina job numbers, 17 years. Meanwhile, the Golden Triangle has raked in $11+ billion in investments since 2000. Can we afford to sit this out? Texas is flexing with tech, Indiana's grabbing cars, and other states are pouncing. We've got a golden shot to leap ahead, but it means speaking with one voice on the big stuff. That's never been a strong suit of ours. Breaking past territorial politics takes a cold look at the numbers, a clear vision, gutsy leadership, and political will. Picture this: Harrison, Hancock, and Jackson pitching ourselves as the Gulf Coast hub. No single county can wave that flag alone, but together we're unstoppable. We tell the world Coastal Mississippi is the Gulf of America's next frontier. So how do we pull this off? We get our leaders, mayors, supervisors, business folks, economic development folks together, and we create a rallying cry. A killer regional marketing plan, unified infrastructure priorities, one-stop permits, and aligned incentives could make this a no-brainer. The Harrison County Development Commission, the Hancock County Port and Harbor Commission, the Jackson County Economic Development Foundation get a boost, not a takeover. Working with a new public-private regional framework, their local know-how fuels a bigger vision, making for a force multiplier. Here's the coast of Mississippi I see. Number one, innovation thrives. High-tech industries, advanced manufacturing, and logistic hubs boom, powered by skilled workforce and top-notch infrastructure. Two, businesses fight to invest. Shovel-ready sites, bold incentives, and a unified pitch make us irresistible to global players. Three, residents win. High-wage jobs, great schools, and a vibrant quality of life lift every corner from Biloxi to Pascagoula to Waveland. And four, we lead. Our ports, highways, rail, and coastal assets become a single unbeatable package, rivaling Savannah, outpacing Mobile, and redefining the Gulf South. With tariffs cracking the door open, we've got the muscle to bust through if we stick together. We rebuilt after Katrina brick by brick. Now, let's build something new side by side. Coast of Mississippi, it's time to dream bigger. Let's unite, dig in, and show the world what we're made of. Harrison, Jackson, and Hancock County, we need to be all in for the whole. We've got the heart, the hustle, and the chance to go big. The clock is ticking, so let's roll. So that's my most recent column, and we're going to continue to have these conversations. We need a single voice on the big stuff. That's the rousing. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let's move now over to JT Mitchell, the news director for SuperTalk Mississippi News. And first of all, just say good morning. How you doing, JT?
Hey, good morning, Ricky. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, listen, speaking of coast of Mississippi as an economic engine, you know, you think about it, Ingalls and Bollinger and shipbuilding and the casino industry, the blue chip industries that are part of Stennis. I mean, that's the bread and butter for coastal Mississippi. And you just posted a great story about Bollinger.
That's right. And I don't know, I do encourage people to go read your columns because it has been fascinating to really see you recount the last 20 years. I mean, August is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Obviously, it has been a brick-by-brick process to get the Gulf Coast back up and running. And now I believe what you're doing is encouraging all three coastal counties to join forces and not get back to where we were, but move further. So props to you on what you're doing there. But yeah, you know, timely enough, Bollinger did make a big announcement. It was this morning, right before you and I hopped on the show together. They received an additional $951.6 million from the government. And this would be, to a little inside baseball, I guess, it's been a half century since the U.S. has built an ice-breaking vessel. Pascagoula is being tabbed to step in as what they want to be known as the icebreaker capital of the world. The U.S. government is working to contract and put this money into the hands of Bollinger in Pascagoula to build icebreaker ships that the U.S. have not built in a half a century. I mean, this could be really influential because the Arctic, that region, is more and more becoming an arena that not just the U.S., other countries worldwide are getting involved in. So that $951 million contract modification is huge for not only Bollinger, but the area. And I think it's timely with what you're writing about.
It is. And, you know, again, it's our bread and butter. And Bollinger continues to invest heavily. I think in your story, they've invested over $40 million there in infrastructure. I mean, they're a serious player. I knew them well over in New Orleans, and as they continued to sort of build their footprint here in coastal Mississippi, that's great for us. And by the way, these icebreakers are big time in the news right now, aren't they?
They are. And a portion of your column where you're talking about the whole tariff situation, which it makes a lot of people uneasy. And there's no doubt about it. And is it going to work out? I have no idea. But if it does, and manufacturing is, in your words, brought home to America, the Mississippi Gulf Coast could become a major player, and the ripple effects of becoming a major player in economic development for the coast would be huge, especially when you compare the other regional markets that are similar to the Gulf Coast. So if it does work out, there's a huge opportunity here for the Mississippi Gulf Coast specifically to work with the current administration to advance each other. And so this could be a story. It could be the first of many where you see the current administration working with the Gulf Coast for further economic development. I mean, $951 million for a shipyard is nothing to scoff at, right?
It's very significant, very significant. Hey, so we'll actually continue this part of the conversation when we get back on the other side as we continue our conversation with News Director from SuperTalk Mississippi News, JT Mitchell. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with JT Mitchell, the News Director from SuperTalk Mississippi News. And when we went to break, we were just discussing coastal Mississippi as an economic engine. And one of the points that you were making is that, the markets are jittery, but we're hearing announcements left and right of companies that are investing back in Mississippi, and back in the U.S., and there's no indication that Trump has any inclination to do anything other than keep that up. He wants to bring jobs back. I think one of the points that I want to make, and I've made it to some extent in that column, and I write more about it in some other columns, and that is that the manufacturing that left here and went to other places, when it comes back here, it's different. Now there's going to be advanced manufacturing and high tech, and all AI is going to play a big role. So you're going to see a change in that. So that's going to create the skills gaps that I talked about. And, there are tremendous opportunities for us here to raise the bar, like you're seeing in places like the Golden Triangle in Mississippi, where you're talking about $100,000 jobs that have been developed there, $11 billion worth of investment. We can fight and get some of that ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, put Trump aside for a minute. Since the current Governor Tate Reeves, took office, $32 billion in private sector investment. Sure, all the critiques people want to throw out at Governor Tate Reeves, all power to them. But when it comes to economic development, I don't think anybody's arguing that he's the most successful objectively by the numbers when it comes to bringing private investment into this state. $32 billion since 2020. You shared a map with me, though, to kind of stay in line with our conversation we're having here. It's quite interesting to see where that $32 billion is going. The Gulf Coast doesn't pop up much on there, and that's not a knock on MDA and Governor Reeves. I think that's kind of what you're trying to get the point across about in your series of columns, is that the Gulf Coast is open for business, but it also takes the Gulf Coast straightening up their side of the street first.
Yeah, I think we do spend a lot of time talking about how do we protect the gaming sector. There's lots of conversations that go on about what's going on at Stennis, although a lot of the Stennis numbers actually get reported in Pearl River County, but still Stennis is a major economic engine for us. And then, of course, Jackson County with Chevron and Ingalls and as the good news around Bollinger, a lot of energy goes into those things. What I'm pushing hard is that if we could create an economic development alliance that is more of a regional view, not to replace the charters stay in place just as they are for the Economic Development Organization, but one point of contact for the big stuff. And then we go to and we start building mega sites like they've done up in the Golden Triangle, like they did in Savannah. We have to think bigger. And the problem is sometimes we get so focused on the areas that we're responsible for, our turfs, that we can't see and don't see the bigger picture. The other thing is that we're kind of competitive with one another, and that's not a good thing either. So, we've got to resolve that, and I'm pushing to do that. I'm doing it in a very positive way. I don't shame anyone. No one's done anything wrong. It's just about raising the bar. And the other point that you made, I think it was a good one, and I will write about this soon. In fact, I've got a draft that suggests it. But our narrative really is that we are survivors. Come on, the worst natural disaster in American history hit here. We are survivors. But it is the 20th anniversary. And it is time to kind of shift gears away from that and start to create a new narrative for ourselves. This golden age of the Gulf Coast. That we're in the center. We're the central Gulf Coast, man. We're right there with our airport and our port and our highway systems and rail. We have tremendous opportunities, and we need to really tap into that.
Yeah, and just reflecting on some of your columns, it's intriguing to me that the Mississippi Gulf Coast is one of the few areas in the state that, in other facets, marketing, for example, they brand themselves as one, right? Coastal Mississippi. But then when you start diving into the different counties and who's hustling to bring economic development to their respective counties, I think you're right that there's not a unified coalition where everybody can go to and it can be a central point of contact for somebody, say out of California who wants to move to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but they don't know what area of the 30 some odd miles of coastline they would be best on. They just know that they want to be on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for whatever reasons, tax incentives, whatever that we're offering to bring in this massive number when it comes to economic development. This company from California, they want to be on the Gulf Coast, but they don't know who to contact. So it's a lot to think about. And I think you're right. It is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and it could be a really good point in our history to change the narrative and put on more of a unified front. And that's not just the Gulf Coast. I think a unified front statewide, we talk about one Mississippi all the time, could help this state thrive.
No, I'm 100% with you on that. I really am. I think, again, in the 6 coast counties, 22 separate, political subdivisions, and then 3 different ports, 3 different airports, 3 different economic development organizations. And there's just a lot of complication. It's hard. It's rough when you're coming in from the outside. So in fact, I have a column that I've written that talks about what people see when they look at us. And it's hard. And, look, there are some folks that are going to say, woo, that's too much to sort through. I call it a jigsaw puzzle. And they decide to go to other places. Because if you think about, Joey and Madison and what he's done there with the Amazon data center and Joe Max Higgins and the Golden Triangle, and you look in my conversations with John Harrison, CEO of Hancock Whitney, said the Florida Panhandle is one of the fastest growing markets in all of Hancock Whitney. You see what the Florida Panhandle is doing. And you look at all of Florida. I often say, when I mention the Florida Panhandle, I have to pause for a second and say, whoa, Florida is on fire. But look, hurricanes are pounding Florida. We cannot let the threat of hurricanes. Do you think, the threat of hurricanes didn't keep over $900 million investment in the Bollinger Shipyard or future investment in Ingalls, right? I mean, the investments that are being made in gaming and what's happening at Stennis, there are certain industries that want to be near a port. Okay, we get to figure out how to do that and do it in a smart way. But this notion of hurricanes, which I've heard so many times, one of the things about having over 1,400 conversations, JT, is that, and I keep very copious notes. Every single conversation I have notes on every single one of them. And of course the shows are captured too. So, I can run the show through apps that I shared with you recently and get the entire show, written for me if I want that. So I've got this digital history book, and I've heard it way too many times that the reason we don't do better is because of hurricanes. We have got to get away from that kind of thinking. We'll never grow the way we want to.
Well, yeah. I mean, hurricanes don't pick Mississippi and say, go there. Breaking news here that hurricanes are not controlled by the government. Nobody is immune. And you look at other markets, which you have actually opened my eyes up to a bit. When you look at the Mobile, Fairhope area, when you look at Savannah, Georgia, And then if you really want your eyes open, do you look at the Florida Panhandle? These are all areas that face similar challenges, and they are currently knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, I saw a statistic where Mobile is 15,000 jobs ahead of their pre-Katrina peak. And of course, we just reached our pre-Katrina peak in 2022. I was there. I was leading the oil recovery efforts for Governor Riley in Alabama while he was flying to the Paris Air Show and dealing with getting this aircraft manufacturing facility in Mobile. And my goodness, man, that was a full court press like you can't imagine. And it's really transformed an old airport, and now they're doing amazing things. And Spirit Airlines that flying into a Gulfport is flying with a plane that's built in Mobile.
Right.
All that's happened. All that's happened in a very relatively short period of time. It's amazing to watch what our peers are doing.
Hey, and the last thing I'll say, because I know we do have other stuff to talk about, is that this conversation we're having, and I believe your columns that you're writing is definitely, I do want to reiterate, definitely not a knock. It's more so a push, a soft push, because the Mississippi Gulf Coast and the state as a whole succeeds in a lot of different fields. But I think the question that we're kind of raising is what's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, shipbuilding is great. Gaming on the coast is great. But what is next?
What is next? How are we going to diversify?
What is going to happen to take advantage of the current situation we're in and happen? What's going to happen that makes the Mississippi Gulf Coast an economic hub of not just the state, but the region?
10, 15, 20 years from now. It's a long game, man. We got to think that way. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with JT Mitchell. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're visiting with JT Mitchell, the news director for SuperTalk Mississippi News. And I'll remind you, sign up for the newsletter. Go to supertalk.fm. You'll see all the news there from Mississippi, not from Indiana, I like to say. And you can also download the SuperTalk Mississippi app. You can watch these shows on the app. All you got to do is watch now at the appropriate time. Or you can go click on the radio station you want to listen to. It's all there at the SuperTalk app and at supertalk.fm. And JT Mitchell leads a great team of reporters focused on getting you the news that you need. And I really highly recommend it. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. You'll be glad that you did. Hey, JT, one of the things, I just want to mention one thing. We're going to talk about some of the headlines related to this legislative session. The much touted snafu with the typo and et cetera. We'll talk about that here in a second. But one of the things I've enjoyed watching Richard come to find his voice as the new morning guy. Richard Cross is doing a great job. And when he talked, for example, about the farming industry and what they're undergoing, and you can tell he's doing his homework. When he laid out this legislative snafu, he did it in such an articulate, smart way. People can really understand it. But it's good to see him hit the ground running like that, isn't it?
Oh, Richard is phenomenal. I really enjoy working with Richard. I think he is one of the best talents in radio, not only in this state, but nationwide. And that's why a lot of people know his voice. And I knew he would do a good job with the morning show if he did his homework and got into it, and he has done just that, and he's hit the ground running. And, I've already seen, I think I saw a notification earlier this morning of a different podcast asking him to come on to talk about being the morning voice of Mississippi. He's already getting it done. He's doing a great job.
It is amazing. Well, first of all, SuperTalk has this great network, unlike anything else like it in America. There's no geography in Mississippi that you can go to and not hear SuperTalk. What a great vision by Steve Davenport. You could tell, of course, Richard had been sitting in for Paul for quite a long time because of Paul's illness. But even before that, as I said to Richard many times, sports guys on my teams, when I led, newspapers and digital media news organizations, were always some of the smartest guys at the table because they knew stats and had great memories and all this stuff. Richard obviously brought all that to the table. But when he got into sort of cultural issues or social issues or even legal issues related to sports, you could tell, man, he could go deep and understand, and his ability to narrate in a way that helps people understand an issue is really well honed. And so it was clear that when he came into this new role, which he has today, that he was going to hit the ground running rapidly, and people were going to be able to learn in ways maybe they weren't thinking about before. So it's been great to watch.
Well, I think there's a lot of crossover. I really do. You talk about sports guys, they are covering a fast-paced game. They have to get these stats, get what's happening on the field, and put it on paper quickly, or talk about it quickly. And I know this is opposed to popular belief, but when you're talking about the legislative session, it's moving just as fast as a basketball game. It really is. It's changing that quickly. And that, number one, is in Richard's favor. Number two, Richard, you probably know him beforehand. You knew him beforehand from Sports Talk, but he's also been a long-time play-by-play guy. And, use baseball for an example. If you're calling baseball, there's some slow points in it. Yes, you do have to take in the stats. You do have to take in what's happening. But if you're behind the microphone for a baseball game, you have to find some stuff to fill the time. You have to tell the stories of the people on the field. You have to talk about what the third baseman's family life was like in Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever he's from. There's a lot of storytelling aspect to it. And that has really, I think, put Richard a leg up when it comes to him taking over the morning show slot. He's done a tremendous job.
Hey, when you think about play-by-play, I've always been fascinated by this, and I mentioned this to Richard, but their ability to watch something and literally as it's happening, cite names and situations and in a way that we can grasp it and understand it. And he's been popular on his ESPN and so on. He was a man ready for this moment. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
So look, again, one of the things he did a great job of describing, and I'm sure it's partly due to our coverage of the now famous snafu, but it is amazing something as critical as the new tax bill would go through so many hands and have a number wrong.
Well, it's actually baffling. It really is one of the most odd occurrences I've seen under the dome. I mean, this wasn't a small piece of legislation. This was the headline piece for this session. Headline, okay? And then the typos that came were in the headline of the headline. It was not in a part about this tax reform bill that was about allocation to MDOT, right? It was in the part on page 6 or 7, I believe, about eliminating the income tax is where the typos came. And if you think about it, well over 100 people with editing ability had a chance to read the bill and say, hey, something doesn't look right. And even I understand that lawmakers don't have time to read every single word of every single bill. That's why you have a staff. Sure. But if I'm passing a bill that's going to eliminate the income tax, I'm at least going to read that section about it. And there were some major typos. It was an errant decimal mark, an errant percentage mark. You take one or the other out, and it would have worked. But they didn't. And it really changed the trigger process of the future elimination of income tax that the Senate thought they were putting in. It's one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I had Delbert Hoseman on the show for a whole hour last week, and we talked about how important the triggers were. I mean, that was the basis of their the House version didn't have the kind of triggers that the Senate wanted to put in place. Senate wanted these triggers so that because no state's ever done this before. Literally, we're the first to ever take a structured income tax like we have and eliminate it. Okay, so they built in these fail safes. And so that the trigger that was the typo made it really, really easy to go forward, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it virtually removed triggers because the typo made it where it would be hard to not set off the triggers. So this has been a big deal. It really has. At the end of the day, it's just attention to detail.
Yeah,
the Senate paid no attention to detail, and the House paid a lot of attention to detail. That being said, we are 10 days away from the session at the time of this show airing, and don't be surprised if they get back at the table and give the Senate a second chance. Because there is another tax bill still alive. Conference weekend is this weekend. And so from what I'm hearing, the House is open to returning to the table and giving the Senate a chance to remedy the typos. But I can assure you they're not going to do that without using their leverage to get some more stuff that they want, if they're going to do that. If not, this typo-ridden bill is going to be signed by the governor. And I know we're talking about it like it's going to happen tomorrow. It's not. I do want to remind people that the typos really don't have an impact until 2030. Hopefully, by the time you get there, Mississippi is doing so great that it doesn't matter. Eliminate the income tax. If we're not doing great by then, guess what? Lawmakers come back to the Capitol every January and can change stuff every January.
Yeah, they could revise it next year. I mean, this is most likely not a showstopper. It's just a puzzling chapter. Here's the thing. We've said it so many times. It's overused. But if you like laws and sausage, don't watch either one get made. And boy, this is the case this time, isn't it?
It really is the case. And here you and I are watching the sausage get made. But man, was it strange, because when the House rushed to concur with the Senate, I was like, oh man, that might be a breath of fresh air. That might be a relief for us journalists. They're actually doing something early. I should have waited, because I knew that was not the case. They saw the typo and they pounced on it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was surprised, man. They came back and said, we'll accept the Senate's bill. I mean, it's like, they didn't even take a deep breath good before they said that.
Right. And I say the typo, it's really typos.
Yeah, right.
Because it's for every year of the trigger system. But the first one you notice is the first year, which would be that 2030 mark after that, with the 85 number.
Been an interesting legislative session. They're all interesting, but man, this one is one for the ages for sure. And I'm hopeful they'll work through it, and we will see. But boy, I'm one who believes we got to have triggers, because it's kind of scary, really, in a way, because we're doing something that's never been done before.
You're better.
So we shall see. We'll continue our conversation with JT Mitchell, news director at SuperTalk Mississippi News, when we come back on the other side. We'll see you. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. We're visiting with JT Mitchell, news director of SuperTalk Mississippi News. I enjoy spending time with JT. We actually spend the second half of every Friday show together, but once a month we're going to get together, and maybe even more regularly than that when the news sort of urges us to get together and spend a whole show together and talk about current events. So I guess enough about the legislature. Lots of other stuff that's happening. That's the big headline as we speak. We'll be watching other bills as we go forward. Municipal primary elections coming up on Tuesday. Voting's always a big topic in Mississippi, but we can't push it enough, can we?
No, you can't. And especially with municipal primary elections, or municipal elections in general. I may be psycho for this, but I get more into municipal elections than I do statewide or federal. We were actually talking with the Secretary of State recently, and he agreed with us that municipal elections at the end of the day are arguably more important than your federal elections. I mean, these are the people who, we talk about taxes. We talked about taxes in the past session, right? But these are the people who can really raise some taxes. These are the people who, their decisions impact your backyard. I do love municipal elections because it's always a chance for each city, if they like what they have, to keep it going. If they like part of what they have, they can change part of it. If they don't like what they have at all, they can get rid of everybody in there at City Hall and get new ones. I mean, I really get into it. And so this is my weekly, if not daily, PSA that I've been giving out through our airwaves that Tuesday, April 1st, do not forget it, April Fool's Day. It is not a joke. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. If you will not be in your county of residence on Election Day, there is still time to make plans to vote. You are eligible to absentee for a variety of reasons. Go to your municipal clerk's office, tell them your reason. They're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and vote. Cast your ballot early. Get it done. Because turnout is horrendous historically in this state, whether it be municipal, statewide, or federal elections. And that's just something I do like to preach. I really am one of the belief that if you don't vote, you can't complain.
Well, listen, I think that's a great urge, and it would echo what I've said in the past. I missed, one of the things about being the publisher of the Sun Herald and having a terrific editorial board and, large reporting staff is that on this municipal elections, we actually did editorial board meetings with every single candidate. And by the way, you think about the number of cities with coastal Mississippi, it was a massive undertaking, massive. And in some cases, we picked sides. And that was big. That was big time. Can't do it with this show. Obviously, I don't even get involved in the political madness that erupts during this time of the year, because it would be impossible. I would have to dedicate every single show to it, and I still wouldn't be able to get to everybody. So it's not a one-man show to go tackle something like that. But it's important to stay focused. I love, by the way, JT, spending time with the mayors of coastal Mississippi. I can't spend enough time with them. Because that's what, as you pointed out, I mean, all politics is very local, man. We've heard it said many, many, many times. But the work that mayors do, the work that city councils do, the work that the county boards of supervisors do is so important to our success. And they touch just about every aspect of our lives. And we want the best leaders in those positions we can possibly get. I mean, that's just reality. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, and it's really important to understand how your city government works. Some people live in a city manager type of government. Others live in a council mayor type of government. Your city council is virtually the legislature to the mayor or the manager, whatever it is. And it's really important to understand that these are the people that are making or approving decisions that impact your neighborhood, impact your community. And man, I know for your show, you cannot get all of the candidates that are running, but that's one of the joys of working in news is that I can go to these forums, I can call these candidates, I can track the bigger races to watch statewide, and I can actively encourage people to get out and vote.
Yeah. Hey, we're down to the Sweet 16. Boy, the SEC is unbelievably well represented. What a story that is. And, of course, Ole Miss, men and women. Man, the success of those programs. I mean, Ole Miss just in general, and all of their programs are doing really well. But it's great to see March Madness include a state university.
Well, it is. And it was great to see it include multiple at the beginning. We're not far from the day where people in this state, they had football season and they waited for baseball season. They did not even pay attention to basketball. But now that's not the case. We are not wasting time talking about baseball when we still have basketball going on. Big time basketball as well. I mean, you said it. For the first time ever, the Ole Miss men and Ole Miss women are both in the Sweet 16. I know we're running short on time, but they'll both play Friday. The men are playing Michigan State at 6:09 p.m. The women will play UCLA at 9 p.m. If they win that, they can still make history again. It will be the first time ever they make it to the Elite Eight if they do that.
Go to supertalk.fm and see our sports coverage. You will be glad you did. And, of course, listen to Sports Talk here on SuperTalk Mississippi. There's nobody can beat us in those conversations. Okay, JT Mitchell, News Director at SuperTalk Mississippi News. Great to spend some time with you, my friend.
All right, Ricky.
You bet. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.